Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Anna and I'm a vegan living in London, originally from the US and Japan. And today I wanted to do something more casual, not about like taste tests or eating or whatever. I wanted to more talk to you guys and share a little bit about my experience as a vegan in London. So I moved to London in December of 2020, so I've lived here for I think like around 9 months now. And I moved here from Tokyo, where I was living for about 2.5 years. And then before that I was in New York for the same amount of time, like 2.5 years. And I've been vegan in all 3 cities. So most of what I'll talk about today is coming from that kind of perspective of being vegan in Tokyo and New York. And a lot of it I'll be kind of comparing the cities naturally. I don't know, I just can't really help it. So just keep that in mind when I'm talking about these things. But I thought it would be fun to share the things that I was most surprised by or that I found interesting about being a vegan in London. So the first thing is that when you go to the grocery stores here, there are so many foamy products, like so many, and that's great. And a lot of them are like processed, you know, like chicken nuggets or sausages or hamburgers, you know, deli slices, that kind of thing. Basically like vegan meat replacements. And so they're so ubiquitous. It's to the point where it's actually quite hard to find vegan meat like that's not processed. So for example, tofu, tempeh, beans. I mean, you can find these things. It's just a lot of them are like at the very bottom of the shelf, or some places don't even have it. Like if you go to a small grocery store, a small Tesco, sometimes I haven't been able to find like just plain tofu. And it might be because we're in the UK and maybe, you know, Asian ingredients like tofu are not as popular. But it's just funny because like, I don't know, in Japan, obviously in Japan tofu is everywhere, right? And it's like it's one of the only reliably vegan things that you can find at a grocery store in Japan. But here, it's like quite hard to find. Yeah, I mean, it's a good and a bad thing, right? Because I love that there's so many vegan options in terms of meat alternatives here, but at the same time, like sometimes, you know, you want something that's less processed, that has less sodium or, you know, less ingredients, and you just want the raw thing. And it can be a little bit tricky to find, but not impossible by any means. You just have to like look at the bottom of the shelf at times. And another thing, I remember when I first came to London and I went to a coffee shop and I asked the lady at the coffee shop, do you have any vegan milk alternatives? And she looked at me like, of course we have vegan milk alternatives. Like we have almond, soy milk, coconut. Like she listed so many different types of vegan milk alternatives, and I was like, it took me a while to get used to the fact that every single coffee shop in London has multiple, not just one vegan milk alternative, but they have like many different types. Most places will have at least soy, almond, oat. And some others will also have like coconut or cashew or hazelnut or whatever, but that's like less common. Because like in Tokyo, in New York of course it's the same, but in Tokyo it's hard to even find coffee places that have soy milk. And if you can find soy milk, it's like, wow, thank the Lord. I think things are starting to change a little bit because Starbucks started to carry almond milk, and I think now they also carry oat milk. But I remember this one place, it was like my favorite coffee shop in Tokyo called Streamer Coffee. And they were one of the only coffee shops in Tokyo that carried almond milk. But if you wanted to get a latte or a coffee with almond milk, you had to pay 150 yen extra, which is like about $1.50, which is absurd. Like you could buy an entire carton of almond milk for that much money. So yeah, it's a bit ridiculous. But here in London, everywhere you go, no matter what, like every coffee shop has dairy-free milk. And actually I was just in Paris last week, and that is not the case in Paris, which actually was kind of surprising for me. Like, you have to ask and see if a place has dairy-free milk, because actually there's quite a few places that we went to that didn't. So don't take it for granted if you live in London. Okay, another thing that I found surprising was that if you go to the countryside, I thought that, you know, going to the countryside, going to more rural places, I would really have to, you know, cook for myself, do the research, like really struggle to find vegan options. But as a matter of fact, I mean, it's not as easy as being vegan in London, but most places will accommodate you, and it's not that hard to find at least like one vegan option on a menu, even if you're in the countryside. And granted, I haven't been like everywhere in the UK. I've only been to a handful of places outside of London, but I've never had any issue finding vegan options. Even, yeah, we went to like this tiny town called Alfriston. It's like south of London, and even there was a restaurant with like a few vegan options. So I don't know. I have not had any issues in the countryside here, but let me know if I'm wrong. Another thing that I think is really great about the vegan scene here is that everything is quite well labeled. And even beyond the food, like if you go to the cleaning supply section, or if you buy like supplements or makeup, a lot of things say if they're plant-based or if they're cruelty-free. So it's really easy to shop more consciously if you decide to, because I feel like when you're vegan, you obviously the food is a priority and you want to eat, you know, you don't want to eat any animal products, but over time I think a lot of vegans try to be more conscious about other things that they buy, like, you know, what kind of cleaning supplies, what they put on their face, their shoes, their clothing. And if everything is labeled clearly, you know, it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. You don't have to do as much research on your own, and it just makes it a lot easier for the consumer to make better choices. So I think that's great, and I wish Tokyo was like that, but maybe in a few years, who knows. And another thing that I've noticed about the vegan scene here is that there's a lot more, okay, I don't know, this is just my opinion, so don't at me, okay? But I think that the restaurants and cafes here that sell vegan food, there's more of a focus on like vegan junk food rather than like health food, you know? So going back to my Tokyo days, a lot of the vegan restaurants were about like macrobiotic food and fat-free and whole foods and, you know, salads and healthy sandwiches and miso soup and very like wholesome vegan food. And I think it's because like the target audience is like ladies who really care about diet and weight and looking good and yoga and things like that. Whereas here, it's not so much about that. It's more about like eating good vegan food, you know, that anyone can eat. It's not so focused on like nutrients and like, you know, superfoods and things like that. It's very rare to find a vegan restaurant, I think, in London that is like that, you know, that's like, we are all about yoga and spirituality and, you know, balanced plates. You know, it's more like French fries, burgers, kebab, pizza, chicken nuggets. It's more like that kind of thing. But that's just my opinion. I don't know. Let me know if I'm wrong. Maybe there's a sector of the London vegan scene that I have not made myself familiar with that's more about that. But from what I can tell, it's like, it's less about the healthy vegan stuff. It's more just like enjoying food, and a lot of it tends to be less healthy, I guess. So the last thing I wanted to share that I think has been a great thing for me living here is that the term vegan is not really a big deal. It's not something to be ashamed of or to like hide from people, or you don't really get like a she's vegan reaction from people here. I think it's like a lot more accepted, it's a lot more normalized. People don't really blink an eye if you say you're vegan. Whereas in Tokyo, if you say you're vegan, first of all, people don't really know what that means, so you have to explain it to them. And I think there's like more of a stigma around veganism, vegetarianism. I think people, think that vegans are like, have their nose up and they think they're better than you, or like they're really healthy or whatever. But here in London, I haven't felt that at all. And it's just really normal to be vegan here, and you don't have to, be ashamed of it at all. I don't know, maybe others don't feel that way, but I feel like when I've lived in other cities, I've felt kind of hesitant to say that I'm vegan because, first of all, it's like, oh, she's vegan, so of course she says she's vegan. Like every vegan will tell you first thing that they're vegan, but that whole thing, and like you want to blend in as much as possible and like, make it as less of a problem as you can. Whereas here, it's not really like that. It's totally normal and people don't really care. So that's been nice as well. But yeah, those were the things that I was most surprised by about being vegan in London. Let me know what you guys think of my thoughts. If you agree, disagree, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. And let's share our experiences. I think it's really cool. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed to my channel. I'm making videos every week. And with that said, I will see you next week. Bye guys.